Hello, friends. I'm Kush Khandelwal, and this is Ageless Athlete. A few years ago, I started asking questions that would not leave me alone. Why do some people keep pushing mentally, physically, spiritually long after others burn out or break down? What does it really mean to age well when you still crave movement, meaning, and mastery? This show is my search for answers. Each week, I talk to elite athletes, everyday adventurers, and pioneering researchers who are stretching the limits of what's possible across age, injury, illness, and self doubt. You will hear hard won lessons, untold stories, and science backed strategies for building a body and mindset that lasts. For those of us joining for the first time, welcome to the show. For the rest, thank you for joining us again. Time is our most valuable asset, and I deeply appreciate you giving me your time today.
Imagine it's race morning. You are standing on the edge of the beach in Western Australia. The air is still, the ocean wide and indifferent. Somewhere out there, across nearly 20 kilometers of unpredictable water, is Rottnest Island. You have trained in silence, out of the spotlight, far from the professional circuits you once belonged to. There is no big sponsor, no media frenzy, just you, a swim cap, and a body you are not sure you can still trust. This was Andy Donaldson's comeback moment. And it was not supposed to happen. Andy had quit elite swimming years earlier, burned out, mentally spiraling, lost. He had gone from Olympic hopeful to accountant, then to backpacker and volcano tour guide in Nicaragua. For a while, he avoided the water entirely. Today, but something shifted. Slowly, quietly, he began swimming again, not for medals, for mental clarity, for joy. And in 2021, he entered the legendary Rottnest Channel Swim, one of the most iconic open water events in the world, and he won. Today, Andy is one of the most respected names in marathon swimming. He holds multiple world records, including the fastest ever completion of the Ocean's 7, a brutal collection of the world's most challenging channel swims. But this episode isn't just about records, it's about the reinvention that happened before them. So, we are dividing this conversation in two parts. In part one, we trace Andy's journey through burnout, depression, and career detours, including his time living in Latin America, where climbing volcanoes with tourists helped him begin healing in ways he did not expect. We explore how he rebuilt his body, mindset, and sense of self, and how his return to the ocean led to something far bigger than performance. The pace here is slower, but it is rich, it is reflective, and it sets the stage for part two of the conversation that we will release next week. In part two, we dive into jellyfish stings, hallucinations, throat swelling, and the unglamorous, relentless reality of long distance endurance swimming. But for now, we begin with the man stepping back into water and into himself. Where are you right now? And what did you have for breakfast?
So I'm presuming that question's where are you physically, not where are you in your life?
Yeah, no, I just physical coordinates.
Physical coordinates, and I don't know the exact latitude and longitude for now. 32 south, I think it is, or something like that. I'm in Perth, Western Australia. Yeah. This is my home. This is where I've lived for the last 12 years. And it is in the morning here, your afternoon or evening. And for breakfast, I actually haven't had breakfast because Saturday's a sleep in for me. Well, at this point in my training schedule, so usually I would train on a Saturday, but right now the intensity is not so high, so sleeping in, and I didn't give myself enough time to get some breakfast before our call. So maybe not the best example of a high performance athlete.
I love it, Andy. I mean, I see different ways we could go here, but one is obviously you earn your rest, and it makes me doubly grateful that you took time out this morning, when you normally would not, you would be training, you would be doing other life things. So we're chatting today. And when we were starting off, you talked about getting a cup of tea and that smile, because I am guessing that perhaps that is the ritual that you have brought with you from your roots. Because from what I know, Australia is a coffee loving culture.
You're absolutely right, Kirsch. So I'm not born in Australia. I moved here, similar to yourself, moving across the world. And I grew up in the west coast of Scotland. Drinking tea is a big part of the culture. And everyone has a cup of tea every day. I probably have about 4. I have too many. But speaking of where you're from, I've been there, and it's best tea I've ever had in my life. The freshest and just nothing compares to it. Just the nicest cup I've ever had was in the south of India.
Oh, wow. No, I was wondering, I have, let's say, dual allegiances, and I was curious, which one were you referring to? Yes, India produces good tea, and a lot of that tea made it over to different parts of the world, starting from tea being exported to Great Britain. Yes. Well, that's great. And interesting. So, starting from Scotland, now you live in Australia, you've held on to your cup of tea. But I'm curious, what is perhaps one new ritual or custom you've added to your life in your new home?
I wouldn't say it's a ritual or a custom, but open water swimming was something that I picked up when I moved to Australia. And, growing up in the west coast of Scotland or just the UK in general, there weren't many people swimming in the ocean or in the sea or outdoors when I was growing up. And, you come over here to Australia and, it's part of the fabric of everyday life. Everybody is outside. Everybody is active. Wherever you go, there's a 50-meter pool in every single suburb. Weekends are spent down by the beach. Evenings are spent down by the beach. And, you're out in the ocean as a 6-year-old kid learning to master the waves. And I didn't have that growing up, and it was a real culture shock for me. I came back from a pool swimming background, and I was very much out of my element when I got here. Not out of my element, but it was so new to me. So yeah, in terms of something I've picked up, I'm sure you were thinking of some kind of that smaller ritual, like having toast with Vegemite or something like that. But something that has impacted my life quite greatly and taking it down a different path was, yeah, just that connection to the outdoors and swimming out in the open water.
That is beautiful in the end. For a small population, Australia is blessed with this dynamic access to the elements in the outdoors.
Mm.
And I also feel the same way. My one and only time in Australia was spent for audience where I was also struck by just the athleticism,
Oh,
the friendliness, and constant movement that I saw in people every day.
well, it's just such a active population. You go outside, everyone's running, everyone's cycling, everyone's doing some form of activity or sport. And, it's set up perfectly for that. You've got beautiful golden beaches that stretch for miles as far as the eye can see. Nice mountains if you want to be active and climb hills or uh, get involved with nature that way. Same for the cycling as well. And it's, I think it's also, when a country has uh, its heroes in different sports, you look to Jamaica with the sprinters, or Kenya with the long distance runners, India with weightlifters or cricket players. It has a knock on effect and inspires that next generation. And, growing up in the UK, the sport there, the national sport's football. So most people are doing that. And every other sport is, in a sense, pushed to the fringes. But you come to Australia and that sport, it's swimming. So, yeah, that was a big driver for me coming out here. I was looking to improve my swimming. And inadvertently and unexpectedly or unplanned, I ended up segueing off and taking a different path down open water swimming.
I've been thinking a lot about energy, not just in training, but in recovery, in focus, in how we age. So when I came across NutriSense, it hit home. It's a program that pairs a 24 by 7 glucose biosensor with a dedicated dietitian to help you understand how your body responds to food, stress, sleep, and movement, and then act on the data. I chose it because I wanted something real, not another hack or one size fits all plan, just honest insight into what's actually going on inside me and how to build habits that last. NutriSense has helped over 150,000 people take that step. And if you want to try it, you can get 33% off your first month with code Ageless15 at nutrisense.io. Again, that's nutrisense.io, code Ageless15. You can also find this information on the show notes for this episode. Just hanging on to the location thread for a second. I sense that many people, when they think of, the big centers for outdoor sports, they probably think about Sydney, begin. They probably just go down that list of maybe size and densities. Maybe it's Sydney, maybe it's Melbourne after that. And I suspect that Perth seems to be one of those understated behemoths in a way, because I only know about Perth because I surf a lot. And I have a couple of surfer buddies down there, so I need to visit. And I avidly follow the surf scene in this little place called Margaret River.
Margaret River.
Yeah, it's five. So it, yeah, I mean, I was just curious, like, is there a particular reason you chose? Is Perth just the best place to be to pursue swimming in Australia?
It's in terms of pool swimming, probably not. You know, the major hubs, like you said, Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Gold Coast, a lot of things are up on the East Coast. And then you've got Perth on the west, which is the most isolated capital city in the world. It's, it's thousands of kilometers or thousands of miles away from your nearest major city. It's closer to fly to Indonesia than it is to fly to Sydney. So, it's off in its own little world over here. In terms of sport, there is a bit of a drain where the best athletes, from a performance perspective, a lot of them end up going over to the East Coast because that's the hub. That's where the best swimmers are all based, and they get drawn over there, particularly in the pool swimming scene. So Brisbane, Gold Coast, really, like, if looking back, hindsight's 2020. If I really wanted to pursue pool swimming, I look back and maybe I should have gone there, or considered going across to America and getting involved in the NCAA or the collegiate system. But, life brought me to Perth. I have an older sister that lives here. She was the one that really encouraged me to come and give it a try. And yeah, I got here, and what I didn't know much about was this open water swimming scene and the ocean swimming scene. And what Perth has, which isn't quite as established over in the East Coast, it has this one event called the Rottnest Channel Swim. So the Rottnest Channel Swim, it's a 20-kilometer swim, so around 13 miles, 14 miles, across to an island off the coast of Perth. And every year since the 80s, this swim has been happening, and people have been swimming across this gulf or this channel of really turbulent and quite treacherous water that does have a few marine lives and big things out there. Thousands of people have been swimming across every year for the last 30 years. And so it's just had this humongous effect on the local community. Everybody knows what the Rottnest Channel Swim is here in Perth. It is the pinnacle, or it's what everyone wants to be involved in and do that is a swimmer in Perth. And in turn, it's just made the swimming community here just incredible. You are here in summer, and there's probably 2 or 3 open water swimming races every weekend here in Perth alone, every weekend through summer. It's just had this knock-on spill onto the ecosystem, and I got swept up in that, and I got pulled into open water swimming after coming here. And you don't have that in many other places in the world. Like, if I lived in Scotland and there was an island 20 kilometers off the coast, yeah, no one would swim to it. It'd just be there. It's something that's just very unique to the fabric of Western Australia. And it goes to show the power of an iconic event, that it can have this long lasting impact on communities and where it takes, how it impacts the people that live in those places.
Amazing. As you're talking, it's almost like I'm drawing this visual of like this happening, and like the entire city gravitating to the water, either to partake in the swim or to maybe support
or
people
to
they know.
support.
Yeah.
Well, and that's it. Like, this one day a year in February, every single year, you get people flocking over to the island just to be part of the swim or just to see the finish or see people coming out of the water that they've made that journey from Cottesloe Beach across the channel to Rottnest. Like, Rottnest is, I'm trying to think of an equivalent. It is synonymous with Perth life. It's everyone goes there and, it's a great holiday destination. It's the place is just stunning. Look, it is like a paradise. And the people here are just very proud of it and proud of that event. It's quintessentially something that's Western Australian. And yeah, it's just amazing that it's here. And that was really the starting place of my own open water swimming journey, or ultra marathon swimming journey, I should say.
I'm guessing that when your sister brought up perhaps this idea of spending time in Perth, you had likely heard about this event. And were, I don't know if temptation is a cliche word, but where were you in your swimming journey? And what impact did that invitation have on you? Was it the idea of coming to Perth, change of scenery, country? Was that perhaps more tantalizing, or was it to just continue with your swimming ambitions and maybe refocus maybe that swim on Rottnest, but also with just the community and the culture and the training? Like, what was perhaps the trigger?
Yeah, when my sister encouraged me to come out, it was right at the start of 2013, so 12 years ago. And I was a pool swimmer. 200-meter freestyle was my speciality. And I really, really wanted to make the Scotland team at the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow 2014. So the Commonwealth Games is all the former British colonies. They become together, the ones that are part of the Commonwealth. And just like the Olympics every 4 years, this happens every 4 years. And 2014, so the following year, was set to be held in Glasgow, near where I grew up. It was a really special thing to target. So Hannah and my sister had said, come out to Australia, see what you think, train over here. It's a change of scenery. It might be really exciting for you in this part of your life. You're 21 years old. So yeah, it was just a no-brainer for me. And I didn't know much about open water swimming. I had zero interest in it. I was 200-meter swimmer. It was all about speed and power, and I hated anything that was long distance. I didn't like swimming in the open water. I'd had zero experience of it. And yeah, that was my goal. I moved out there. I was really focused on trying to make teams and realize my potential. I'd been swimming for 14 years at that point in time, ever since I was 7 years old. And that had been a goal and a dream of mine. And yeah, it was a real change in my path. I got out there. I really focused in on the 200 freestyle. But funnily enough, a couple of months before the qualifiers, before the trials, I was swimming in the ocean and I actually injured myself swimming in the ocean. And it was actually quite embarrassing, Kush. I was running I was watching all these other athletes, these Australians, just effortlessly navigate their way out past the break into the ocean. They were running in off the beach, running across the bank, diving in. And here's me, this West Coast of Scotland kid with zero surf skills, zero knowledge of the ocean. And I went running like full tilt into the ocean, did this dive straight into a sandbank. And
Oh, goodness.
arm stretched out and my shoulder just went completely took brunt of it all. And that was me out for months. And yeah, it was a humbling experience. And I managed to rehab. I got myself as fit as I could for these trials, but ultimately fell short of those goals to qualify for the Scotland team to race for Scotland at home Commonwealth Games, and that was a very, very difficult thing to position to be in. All these people that I'd grown up with, we'd shared this dream together. Watching them go on and realizing this dream that we all had, and I was left at home and watching from afar. I mean, I couldn't even really bring myself to watch it. It was heartbreaking, and yeah, that was a very tough time in life and in my swimming career. And I never got really the opportunity to realize what could have been or test myself in full peak fitness.
Well, myself and many of the everyday athletes listening to the show, I think we can all empathize in your predicament because I've been battling injuries for a while, and it certainly feels like, 1 second you're at the top of the game and you have these big goals and your life kind of is central. You have this focus, and the next second, just like your world shifts, and like you feel like you've been frozen on the sidelines. And another thing maybe that you talked about, which I think is it's interesting. Like I like to think that, our sports and our communities, they are they're so friendly and we have this amazing bond. But I also sometimes think that that is not always so true. I actually think that a lot of these elite sports, these lifestyle sports, there's a bit of ableism in there where, if you are hanging with the pack and you're doing things, then it's absolutely so invigorating. But the second, like, you cannot do that, something happens which pulls you out. Sometimes the community, they don't always understand or have the time because a lot of the time that you spend with your folks is maybe out swimming,
Yeah.
doing. Yeah, can you speak a little bit about like how some of that felt like?
Yeah, it can be quite lonely. It's never a nice feeling, and sometimes the people around you don't know what to say. And it's not that they don't want to help, it's just that they don't know how to do it. And yeah, you can feel a bit isolated and on your own in those circumstances. And, I certainly did for a while. And I probably was too young or not mature enough to really realize that and seek help or speak out about it, or not speak out about it, but speak to someone about it, or reflect, look at the good things that had come up to that point. And I was very much in the dumps and trying to sweep it under the rug and just not think about it.
Friends, it means a lot that you're here. I pour a ton of heart into the show. The research, the interviews, the editing, it's all me, trying to share stories that matter. If Ageless Athlete has ever made you feel seen, inspired you, or just kept you company on a long drive, or better, over a run or a bike ride, I would be so grateful if you considered supporting it. Even a small amount helps keep it going, helps keep bringing the show to you for free. You can chip in at buymeacoffee.com/agelessathlete. Again, buymeacoffee.com/agelessathlete. You can find the link on the show notes as well. Thank you for listening and for being part of this.
Well, also, when we were earlier planning this conversation, Andy, you spoke about how you were still recovering from the lower back issue. So, well, I really appreciate you showing up because I know how derailing something like a core injury or lower back injury. I also had a flare up recently. It puts the brakes on everything else. Since we're on this topic, can you talk about what's happening with your back today, maybe your fitness today, and maybe how some of your lessons from earlier are helping you develop that mindset to pursue?
Oh, okay. So, to provide context, I have been struggling with a lower back injury. We were supposed to catch up a couple of days ago, and I was in a real bad place with that. And yeah, it's not easy, is it? When you have these injuries and it just stops you from life. Doing these things that you love to do, being up and moving, and for me, swimming and getting the endorphins, getting access to community, all these things that are good for the body, the mind, the spirit. And it can certainly be difficult on the sidelines. If I was to look back, I mean, this all happened back in 2014, so that's 11 years ago. And a lot of stuff has happened in between. You know, I made a transition into open water swimming. I, again, set new goals to try and make the Olympic team for Great Britain, and then explored opportunities to maybe swim for my mum's country, Indonesia. And almost in like a repeat situation, I never got those opportunities to test myself at the trials. I got myself into phenomenal shape, learned all of these open water skills, and never really got to realize my potential or see what I could do with those abilities. And again, that was a very difficult time, and it actually caused me to step away from the sport. I did re-engage with it back in 2020. I'm sure we'll cover that at some point in this chat. We could probably revisit it. And that's taken me to where I am now, which is on this ultra marathon swimming path, swimming some of the world's biggest channels, ultra marathon swims, things that people have never done before, and trying to tie purpose into these challenges and use them as something more than just me aspiring to achieve personal goals. Like there's always something bigger at play that we're tying in when we do these challenges. So yeah, in terms of lessons, I think one of the biggest ones has probably been patience. This is your situation now. Yeah, it might not be great, but that doesn't necessarily determine where you can go. Things take time. The body takes time to heal. Everything takes time, but it doesn't mean that it can. And sometimes these things happen for a reason. You weren't meant to go down this path, maybe you were meant to go this way. My first injury in 2014, if that hadn't happened and if I went to the Commonwealth Games, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. I might not even be living in Australia. Same again in 2016 when I quit swimming. I needed that time away from the sport to realize how important it was in my life. Not just in terms of that I love the sport, but I love everything that comes with it. The connection to the water, being out in nature, being surrounded by your friends in an incredible community, having goals to work towards. All of these things and the impact that has on your life and your well-being. I think you sometimes have to take a step aside to realize what you no longer have or just how important something is. And that perspective was certainly something I gained in that time away. So yeah, that lesson from all of this is just be patient, follow the path. One of my mentors, Jay Purcell, he has a saying, and not sure if it's his or not, I think it's not, but he says, life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. And I would say that's the same here. Just be patient, let things unfold, and then judge whether it's good or bad. Most of the time, it's all up to our interpretation after all.
Yes, 100%. It can take a bit of distance and perspective to be able to reframe that in a positive way. I've certainly found that too in my own life as well. And you've had a very interesting journey, Andy. And I just want to go back to your transition from being this competitive full sprinter, right? You were this, I guess, this finely tuned machine, completely focused on this sport and this goal. And you transition to something which, to me, as an outsider, seems completely different. I'd love for you to walk us through. One is maybe just compare and contrast, like the two different sports. What are the key differences that you had to face in making that, and some struggles you might have had, some moments of humility you faced, and maybe some strengths that you found that you were not aware of, because obviously you have some gifts, and that's why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah. I'll make some analogies. So swimming's quite broad. You have pool swimming, which every 4 years at the Olympic Games, that's the one that you see on the television. It's in a very controlled environment. It's in a 50-meter pool most of the time. You know exactly how far you're swimming. So if you're swimming 200 meters, you're swimming for 4 laps. You know pretty much it's going to take, let's say, less than 2 minutes. And at this particular point in time, I know that I'm in heat 5, lane 4. It's going to start at 9 a.m. in the morning. There's a lot of, it's a very controlled environment, which allows you to focus on one thing, which is your performance. And that's what it's about. It's all about high performance, getting the fastest possible time. And it's a very results-driven, results-orientated sport. If you have a great performance, but the result isn't good, it's pretty cutthroat. It's a very difficult thing. You could be training all year round, and you get there on race day, and if you're a few seconds slower than the time, that's a reflection of your entire year. It's high pressure. Compare that to open water swimming. The open water swimming is outdoors. It could be in rivers, lakes, oceans, and up in the mountains, down by sea level. There's a lot of different environments that you might be swimming in. And with that comes unpredictability. If you're swimming outdoors, what's the weather doing? Is it windy? Is it sunny? Or are you swimming through the night? Is there huge tides that are going to be pushing you left and right, or swells, currents under the water that you can't see? And is there sea life? There's no lane ropes. There's no black line to follow. And there's all these variables out there that are just completely wild and unpredictable. So it's the exact opposite in terms of an environment. And within open water swimming, you've got different branches. So you've got the Olympic pathway and the world aquatics route, which usually is laps of a course. So if I was to make a comparison to running, you've got the events that Usain Bolt was doing, the 100 and 200. That would be like your like pool swimming. Then maybe you have the marathon, which is running on the road, but it's a set out course. Then you've probably got something different, a little bit of a different environment with the ultra marathon space, things like the channel swims or point-to-point swims, or swimming around an island, where the course is less defined and you just have to get from A to B. And you ideally, depends what your goal is. I think for a lot of people, it's just to make it to the finish. And, again, Jay Purcell, my mentor, to finish first you must finish. Like, there's all of these environments, there's all of these factors that can affect you, like the weather, like the wind and the waves and the water conditions. All of these affect you as a swimmer in such a great manner. If you're a runner and you want to run 40 kilometers or a marathon, you can go on most days. But as a swimmer, if you're trying to swim the same distance and it's howling winds, like gale force winds, and the waves are crashing down on top of you, and the currents are pushing in the wrong direction, you're not going to make it. It's, Mother Nature, she's not to be conquered. You have to work with her. And that's what open water, that ultra marathon space, it's so key to get that right. And so the planning and adaptability really comes into its own. And, you might travel somewhere like a swim such as the English Channel. I live in Australia. If I fly up to England, that's a long way, and it takes quite a cost commitment. I could get there. I'm given 5 days where I need to get my swim done in. And the weather's crap for those 5 days. Guess what? You're not swimming this year. So, the biggest difference from the pool to the open water is this controllable factors aspect of it all. One's designed for elite performance and very results orientated focused. The other is maneuvering and making the most of whatever Mother Nature gives you. And for me, getting to the finish is the goal. Anything beyond that, if you get a fast time or records or anything else, like that's just really something on top, but like a nice bonus or the icing on the cake. but it's not like Mother Nature's on no obligation to comply. And I think that's what makes it so exciting.
Hello, friends. Just a quick break. This is not an ad. If you have been enjoying these conversations, I would love for you to subscribe to my newsletter. It is where I go deeper, sharing stories, reflections, and behind the scenes insights that don't always make it into the podcast. I write about what I'm learning from elite athletes and how to stay ageless in body and mind. If you have ever wanted a thoughtful, inspiring read that ties it all together training, aging, mindset, and awe. You will love this. You can find the link in the show notes or just head to agelessathlete.co. Again, www.agelessathlete.co, that is, to sign up. And yeah, just a couple of emails a month, and you can unsubscribe anytime. Absolutely no spam ever. Okay, back to the show.
That was very educational. I feel I learned a little bit about the the contrast between pool swimming and between open water, but then also between, let's say, shorter open water swims and the ultra marathon swims that you are well known for. And actually, interesting, you mentioned about how you have to just carefully fine tune your planning because, yeah, the vagaries of Mother Nature can derail. And it took me to my time in surfing where you also have to plan your surf trips. And I'm wondering, does that happen where do you look at like meteorological chart and like when like do you do all of that like study like that stuff to plan your trips to like Hawaii or everywhere
100%.
else?
Like,
Okay.
a slight addiction to the windy app.
Yeah,
watching,
yeah, same.
watching all the lines and the action and the force of them. You see the purple areas and you know that that's not good. You don't need to be a weatherman to know that that's you're not getting out in those conditions. But, the reason why, aside from improving your likelihood of success, the other reason why is safety. You are swimming in wild waters. You are swimming in potentially some of the most dangerous places in the world. And it's not just you out there. Yes, you might be the only person in the water, but these swims, you can't do them alone. You have your support team, usually in a boat beside you, a skipper navigating, people keeping you hydrated and fed, passing on important details and updates during your swim. And if you get it wrong, you're not just putting yourself in danger, you're putting them in danger too. And so there's that accountability aspect of it all as well. And so planning, in another life, I was a CA or in America, the CPA, and planning, it's not something that's as sexy a topic as something like resilience and mindset and all these kind of things, but it's equally as important and pivotal when it comes to having giving yourself the best chance of success and giving yourself most appropriate opportunity for a safe swim.
I'm 100% like you have to I guess become experts in all these new fields in order to again have the best chances not only for success but also safety for you and your team. Andy, in your transition from pool swimming to maybe the Rottnest and then beyond, obviously it was not smooth sailing.
Perhaps you could take us to maybe one or two moments in that transition where it really seemed difficult, like all the new things you had to learn to be able to succeed in an entirely new discipline.
Yeah, it's a good question, Kurt. And I think a relevant one because that transition from pool swimming to open water, it can be quite daunting. It can be quite daunting because of those differences in the environment. Like we talked about, going from the smooth, calm waters of the swimming pool and out into the unknown. That you are swimming in waters where it could be rough. You're swimming in waters that could be freezing cold. You're swimming in waters where you might not be able to see the bottom of the pool, like you would in the pool. You might not be able to see the bottom, or it might be cloudy, or there's a lot of silt that impairs your vision, and there's no lane robes to help guide you to where
I
you
mean,
need
you
to
may
go.
not be able to see, a few feet ahead of you if it's
Oh,
dark or if it's stormy. Yeah, I mean,
I've been
totally.
in where these things have happened. I've been in swims where I've swum through the night and I couldn't see more than my fingertips. And I know that below me, this channel that I'm swimming across is kilometers deep. And you just don't know what's underneath. Or I've been in swims where my support boat's broken down and I've been stranded out in the ocean. I've been in swims where, goodness me, we swum into unforecasted storms. These things can happen. Probably not really selling my sport ride very well right now, but where I should probably begin with is you don't make that jump up to here straight away. It's a gradual process. You find people that you can learn from, others in the community that are comfortable, that have that knowledge of how to swim in the open water. They know what to look for. They know what the risks are. They can share and get you upskilled in that. You don't just go down to the beach and dive on straight in. Like, what are the potential hazards? Are there rocks over there? Is there a sandbar like I had? Are there rips and currents that we should try to stay clear of? What happens if we get caught in them? How do we get out of it? Where's our stuff? And is there a landmark on the land that we can keep an eye on so we don't get lost and can't find where we were when we began this swim? These small things that make sense when you hear them, but you might not have, you don't know what you don't know. And so, yeah, I was very fortunate. I had some of the best open water swimmers in Australia to learn from. And, you become a product of your environment. They were the best at what they did. They were training for the Rio Olympic Games in the 10K. And I just got lifted up to their level, and it just really was like a sponge trying to learn everything that I could in order to improve and pick up this new skill. And the swimming is largely the same. You choose the more efficient stroke, usually freestyle. And there's a couple of tweaks in order to help you navigate when you're out in the open water. You probably, if I was to list them off the top of my head, sighting, so that you know where you're going and you can take a more direct route. You're not swimming off course, which happened to me in one of my very first swims where, I swam so far off course that I actually had to get fetched by the kayak and brought back into the main race because I wandered off so much. And, I was probably faster than most of that field, but I swam so far much further that I ended up coming second by less than a second of the guy that came first won an iPad. And I was thinking to myself, I was devastated, to be honest. So I'm going and claim that at prize giving. Ah. And that's when I learned open water's not about being the fittest or the fastest. It's about being smarter and learning how to navigate the conditions well, learning to navigate or adapt to the challenges that arise and do that in an efficient manner and be planned and prepared for your swims. And so, to anyone that's getting into the sport, you learn by doing, but make that progression gradual and learn from the people around you. People ask me, how do I get more comfortable in rough conditions? Reading a book will help, and you can learn about all these things, watching YouTube videos, but you have to expose yourself to it at some point. You don't learn how to drive a car without getting behind the wheel. But make it easier for yourself, like swim with other people so that you are feeling comfortable. Gradually increase exposure to those conditions, or, for if it ever comes down to the cold water swimming, you don't go straight into like 2-degree water, or I'm not sure what that is in Fahrenheit. Basically, ice swimming.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
build up to it. And the mental part of it is probably the biggest shift. I came into open water swimming in my mid-20s, and you've lived your life, and I had lived my life in this very controlled environment of pool swimming. And so the mental aspect is a huge shift. And I'd just say be kind to yourself. Give yourself compassion. It's not going to come straight away, but, like we talked about with patience, it will happen. Just keep turning up, keep the consistency. And I tell you what, it will be worth it at the end. What this sport brings in terms of how it can enrich your life, that connection to the water, being able to swim in some of the most beautiful places on the planet. Like, that's what it's done for me. I've been fortunate enough to swim in places like Hawaii or Turkey or the Red Sea in Egypt or South America, Japan, New Zealand, Australia, Scotland. I think that last one's a bit French, but
Yeah.
it is a very freeing sport. I know you would have experienced it with surfing, like being out there in the elements. Like there's nothing that compares to it. And if you can build that comfort in the open water, it opens up so many doors to other things as well. If you're comfortable and competent, you can go into diving or surfing or kayaking or free diving, whatever you want to do. Like, it's the base level sport for watermanship and all of these different things that are out there in the ocean. And so, yeah, if you are in this position where you are making this transition, thinking about that why keep going, why persevere with this? Tell you now, it is worth it in the end. It's worth sticking at it. So, I'd encourage you to keep going down this path, because it will enrich your life.
Andy, the lessons and the advice you shared, I think in some ways it transcends sport, because there's so many things where if you decide to take the uncharted, difficult path, yes, one can surround oneself by all kinds of media, but one has to take that step into that journey. And
the way to perhaps soften it or add power under your belt is by finding community of fellow sufferers, or just people who have been doing it longer than one has. And I sense that open water swimming, similar to many other, let's say, outdoor lifestyle sports, the community and the bonds are strong. Where, once you start going out there, people notice you. People are usually very open to supporting because they have likely been supported themselves when they began their journey. And you made use of this lovely community and the community responded. I am curious if there was some kind of moment, maybe even an epiphany, when you started into the sport and you were maybe just I don't know, so taken away by the 3D nature of the environment or how your body was feeling. And you were like, wow, I'm so glad I made this shift, or I discovered, or maybe the open water discovered me, and this is where I belong.
Yeah, I can tell you the exact moment when that happened in my life, Kush. So I'll provide a bit of context, but it happened during COVID. And, I think COVID, obviously there was a lot of chaos and madness in the world, and a lot of bad things happened in COVID. I think in a sense, there was also a time for reflection and a lot of change in people's lives. And I was no exception to that. So to fill in the gaps a little bit, I quit swimming in 2016, and that was me done. I failed twice at these big goals that I had, and I felt like I was falling behind in other aspects of life. So stepped away from it, focused on my career as an accountant for a number of years, but inadvertently during COVID, found myself coming back to the water. And originally it was just for sheer pleasure. Myself and an old friend and mentor of mine, a guy called Martin Smoothie, he got me back into the water, and we didn't have anything else to do in lockdown. We were all stuck at home. And he was saying, let's get back in the water. We're going to swim a couple of kilometers up the coast every morning from a beach called Chig Beach up to Sorrento Beach here in the western suburbs of Perth. And, swimming at that point in life held it brought a lot of pain to me because, when I thought of swimming, I thought of failure. I hadn't achieved these goals. I hadn't realized my dreams. Even more than that, I felt like I'd let down a lot of people that had believed in me and supported me through that journey. Like my coaches that I'd worked with every day, my friends who really believed in me, my family who, been taking me to the pool since I was 7. And coming back to it, it was a bit confronting, but I came back to it from a place of enjoyment instead. And that's what Martin was really trying to encourage me to think about, what are the good things that it brings into your life? That connection to the water, having time in the ocean and being immersed in nature, having time alone with your own thoughts, time to think. In today's world where we're always connected with our phones, it's one of the few places in the world where you don't have that, or your emails in your pocket, because it's so beautiful. The endorphins that you get from the exercise. seeing beautiful things under the water, which we did every day. Like we would swim just as sunrise was coming up. And those moments, they stay with you. And so, and more than that, it wasn't just the swims, it was the cups of tea afterwards as well, or the hot chocolates. There was a community aspect as well. So, I started to realize just how much I missed this and needed this in my life. And so much so, we actually started, Martin's a businessman, and we were talking about, this has got such an impact on our lives. Like we need to get more people into water swimming. And so we started a little group called Swim Clan, and we started getting adults to come down into the water and get them more comfortable in open water swimming for the purposes of life enrichment. We wanted them to be stronger swimmers, be out in the open water, and maybe revisit some of these goals that they'd had but might have.
And this is happening in Perth. This is just getting a timeline. This is like during COVID when you rediscovered the water.
And so, we were coaching these people, helping them towards these unfulfilled goals, and it didn't have to be big. It was, I want to do my first ever triathlon, or I want to be in a relay team across to the Rottnest Island, or I just want to be more comfortable in the sea so that I can enjoy the ocean with my kids. And we were doing that, and we were coaching these people for maybe 2 or 3 months. And along the way, Martin turned to me and he kind of called me out, and he's like, look, you're going and you're telling all of these people to pursue their dreams or revisit unfulfilled goals. When are you going to get back on the horse yourself and do this, and it's, do what you preach? And he set that challenge for me, and I thought, oh gosh, that's quite confronting, but he was absolutely right. I'd been running away from this path. I'd had all these things under the surface that I hadn't really addressed. And it probably goes back to my childhood and not feeling like I was good enough or lacking that self-belief to go on and achieve what I set out to achieve. And I thought, this is the time and place to do it. I had some money in the bank. I was in a good place, physically and mentally. And I thought, well, it might not be an Olympics, but why not have a crack at the Rottnest Channel Swim and see what I can do? So that was really the start of this journey back into swimming and into marathon swimming. And it was less about the pressures of results and performance. Instead, it was coming from a place of enjoyment, love of the sport. And the only competition was really with myself. Can I get myself into the fittest possible shape? And I'd love to see what I'll be able to do when I get there.
That's it, folks. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Ageless Athlete Podcast. I hope you enjoyed this show just as much as I enjoyed creating and producing it. Whether you are an athlete looking to push your limits or someone striving to maintain a healthy, active lifestyle as you age, there is always something new to learn. From Ageless Athlete, we bring you a fresh episode each and every week. If you liked what you heard, we would love it if you would take a moment to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an update. And if you really liked what you heard, please leave us a review crush those 5 stars on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever else you listen to your podcasts. It helps us reach more people who are passionate about staying strong and resilient, no matter the age. Don't forget to visit our website and leave your email so I can send you occasional insights, stories, and tips to keep you inspired and motivated on your journey. You can also follow us on Instagram at Ageless Athlete Podcast and on YouTube at Ageless Athlete Podcast as well for even more great content. All of these links are available on the show notes for this episode. This show is entirely produced by me, Kush Khandelwal, based out of California with the help of my trusted adventure pup, Roger. Until next time, keep challenging yourself. Keep pushing those limits. Stay mentally and physically fit. Continue doing what you love to do. And my friends, stay ageless.
Friends, this is not an ad. This is just a quick message to those amongst us who are listening to Ageless Athlete podcast for the first time. I would love it if you would hit subscribe and follow on your favorite podcast app, whether it's Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Stitcher or Overcast or what have you. We bring you stories and routines and other inspiration from elites in the world of the best outdoor sports. In each episode, you will find how these athletes stay connected to the outdoors, maintain peak performance, and continue to thrive as they age. I encourage you to look through prior episodes and listen to a couple and see if they resonate. And then, come back next week. We release an episode each week. And I am really inspired to bring you some of the best stories from the world of the outdoors. Okay, back to the show.